Because if your triglycerides are high on keto, that's a good indicator that maybe keto's not for you.
You know, when it comes to keto, it's like there's so many mistakes people can make. What are some of the common ones? I know you've done so many videos on this, so I'm hoping that the people that are watching this, I hope they dive into your YouTube channel. But what are a couple things that people kind of screw up when they're trying a keto diet?
Yeah, I think it's always good to like do a revised keto mistakes video like every 6 months anyway, because like we all learn so much and I catch so much crap for that because like you said that this was a mistake. Now this is a mistake. How many mistakes are there? No, we're like new mistakes, guys, because we don't live in the same era all the time. I would say one of the big ones is like freaking out about protein, like being concerned with protein is a keto mistake. Like when people are like, oh, if I eat too much protein, it's going to kick me out of keto. That's like so 2015. Like we did kind of think that early on. And even some of the research kind of suggested it, but that's not the case. Like if anything, protein is going to, at the very worst, it's going to maybe slow down ketogenesis, but it's definitely not going to kick you out of keto. And the long tail benefit of having protein is going to far outweigh potentially knocking you out of keto, even though it's not going to. It's, you know, it might lessen it. I think one of the biggest things is when you're looking at blood work, not looking at your triglycerides is a big mistake. And I know I'm taking this higher level than the basic keto mistakes, but that's like the one thing you should really look at, because if your triglycerides are high on keto, that's a good indicator that maybe keto's not for you, or maybe you're reaching some level of like malfunction, because the triglycerides are the storage form of fat. And if they're not actually going to the liver and forming ketone bodies properly, then those triglycerides are climbing and climbing. And that's not necessarily good for gaining weight, but it's really just not good for your overall health. Like, so if your triglycerides are high when you're doing keto, be careful, maybe take a break or at least lessen the fats. Another one that I would say is, I mean, it's kind of generic, but the electrolyte thing. You know, I think that's absolutely. Like, I went years without taking in electrolytes when I was doing keto, and people are like, oh, well then like, if keto is such a natural good thing, then why do you need to add in additional things? Well, because in a lot of ways, like keto is kind of, I don't want to say it's unnatural, but it is kind of unnatural because we are like artificially kind of manipulating things by like consciously restricting a food that would normally be in our diet. Right? So we're already making things more complex. So sometimes you have to embrace a little bit of complexity with it. As far as like my muscles being able to contract properly when I'm working out, like I thought it was a carb thing for the longest time. Like, oh, maybe I need to have a little bit of carbs pre or post workout because I'm just like, I don't feel like the mind muscle connection's there. I don't feel like my muscles are working. And then for me, I'm fairly heavily muscled guy. So I found that like 2000 milligrams of sodium between my pre and intra, like what I drink before and during, about 2000 total milligrams of sodium, game changer. Like revolumized my muscle tissue. It felt like, and I feel like that would be, I think that gets rid of the whole keto flu thing altogether. I think the biggest reason of the keto flu is a massive change in your electrolytes that's making you feel wonky.
Now today's video is sponsored by a company called Seed. You've probably seen them floating around the internet before, but Seed is really cool. Not only do they do a bunch of their own microbiome research, and they probably are the biggest forerunners when it comes down to like companies investing in microbiome research. It's really cool, but they have a cool technology. So if you look at the footage right now, I'm showing it's got a capsule inside of a capsule. This is like unreal stuff, like really cool tech. So when you take this probiotic, it's a Synbiotic. So it has a prebiotic and a probiotic, and they kind of have a multi-stage delivery where part of it digests in your gut, and then the rest of it kind of goes down into different areas of your small and large intestine. This is really cool stuff because it means that they are working hard towards making sure that it's getting to the right place, okay? So that link down below will save you 15% off of Seed's Daily Synbiotic. Absolutely has Thomas's stamp of approval on it. I've been talking about them for about a year and a half now. I've really been a big fan of them and using them regularly. So that link's down below. Save 15% off using that code and using that link. So check them out.
You know, one thing I'm really curious about too, as far as, I guess, performance athletes when it comes to a lot of this, is what other things do you think that individuals who are really deep into the cardio side of thing can take advantage of if they're trying to do keto or low carb, when they're not just trying to lose body fat when doing any of these diets? What do they need to add in, if anything? Because I've I just didn't start this to drop body fat. I wanted to try and improve my performance, and it has increased over time.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of athletes that are like, there's no way I can fast, or there's no way I can do low carb or keto if I'm trying to gain muscle or improve running or jujitsu or any of those types of things.
Yeah, that's common, because it's almost like, in some ways, it's great for when you're already there and you've reached this point and for maintenance, but to achieve a different level.
Yeah.
I can't go into like a whole lot of detail, but I mean, like I work with, a lot of the military and special operations, and keto is a chunk of that, right? Because it's like, okay, well, obviously this becomes very important with how do we still maintain performance? And it's the same kind of thing. Like when I work with like a professional athlete, it's the same kind of thing. It's like, that is so important to be able to get better. And I will say that you definitely have to become more targeted with your approach.
Yeah.
And that's literally why it's called targeted keto. So it's kind of doing what I do, like where I sprinkle in carbs sometimes post-workout, or I'll sprinkle in carbs consolidated to a specific period at night. When you've been doing keto for a while, like you have to get through that fat adaptation phase first, but then you'd be surprised, like if you're doing a lot of athletic activity, you'd be surprised at how many carbs you can take in without kicking you out of keto.
Yep.
So I think that that's the thing, is like, you don't need to just constantly be in crazy high ketone levels. If I am training for 2 hours, you can bet your bottom dollar I can have like 100 grams of carbs and still be registering. I'll kick out of keto for a minute, like maybe a couple hours, but then a couple hours later, I'm right back in it. Because why? Well, my muscles are saturated with that stuff. They're sucking it right up. So it's all relative to your activity level. So for performance keto, it's about having just the right amount of carbohydrates to offset the workload that you did. So you're providing your body with carbohydrating backload for that training that you did. So it's like if I trained and I did a full body load where I was like really depleting glycogen levels, then it comes down to really getting to know your body and how many carbs you can get away with, that tolerable upper intake. It's like, what is my threshold for carbohydrates before I spill over? So yeah, I mean, I've gone as high as like 150 and still been in ketosis by the end of the day, which sounds like a lot of carbs, but like it's really, 150 is really not that much. And it sounds like a lot to a keto person because they're so accustomed and acclimated to 50 grams at the most. Like 150, are you crazy? It's like 2 bowls of oatmeal. Like that's not that much. So not hard to offset that workout with carbs. So that way it's like you're conditioning the body to be able to be repleted properly, but then you're still getting the benefits of keto because the majority of the time you're still in ketosis, which especially for like that's good for like a hybrid athlete. For like endurance athletes, it just takes like some conditioning. I think endurance athletes can actually thrive keto because it lends itself quite well. I know a lot of the triathlon community is getting into that. Some of the top marathoners are doing it. So it definitely applies there, and they don't even, ever add carbs in. They just stay strict keto because over time your muscles will learn to adapt to keto and be able to still store glycogen from pathways like gluconeogenesis, where extra protein or the glycerol backbone of a triglyceride is broken down and used as a carbohydrate store.